Hey, good morning, everybody. It is Saturday morning, and this is Multifamily Unplugged. Welcome back. Glad that you're here this morning. And you know what? If you're new and you're here for the first time, thank the person that invited you, because I think that you're going to be in for a surprise today. My guest is Ryan Chaw. He's with Newbie Real Estate Investing from Sacramento, California. So we'll get into our guest in a minute. But, you know, as I always start on Saturday morning, I always want to ask you what your intentions are. What are you working on this weekend? Are you still working, or are you spending family time, and are you focused on those important things around you other than just work? You know, whatever it is, I think that we need to be intentional about what we're doing in the direction that we're going in. So, you know, just like in your job, when you set goals and set intentions and work on accomplishing things, we should be doing the same thing at home. We should be doing the same thing with our spouses, our partners, our family, and really just growing that environment as well as growing our work environment. So remember, coming up October 17th and 18th is our 5th annual Multifamily Summit. This year, I think you're going to be mesmerized by the amount of speakers. We have over 20 speakers and panelists. We have Vina Jetty, who's, you know, a big operator in the space. She's going to be talking about how she scaled her business. We have a panel on raising capital, a couple of individual speakers on raising capital. Ryan Bakey is going to talk to us about tax planning, tax strategies. We're going to talk about 1031 exchanges. We're going to talk about IRAs, self-directed IRAs, how to get started in the business, how to underwrite, and really going to focus in on raising capital. Neil Bao is going to join us. He's going to talk about where the market's at, where the market is headed. So this year is going to be action-packed. We're going to go from 9 a.m. on Thursday the 17th all day, right through 9 a.m. on Friday the 18th, all the way through to the end of the day. So you'll want to pack a lunch, bring a lunch with. Hey, the good news is if you can't make the entire event, because there's always something that pulls you away, if you can't make the entire event, you have the ability to get the recording as well. So if you are interested in coming to the event this year, whether you're an active or a passive investor, you're going to have plenty of information for both sides of that aisle. Go to multifamily24, get registered right now because space is limited. Let me do this. Let me bring our guest Ryan in right now and get this started. Hey, Ryan, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for inviting me on the podcast, Mike.
Yeah, you bet. I appreciate you being here, and thanks for taking the time to do this. Hey, Ryan, I know that your company is Newbie Real Estate Investing, and I'm really interested in digging into that, finding out how you came up with that name, where that came from. But before we go there, I always want to know, I always ask my guests in one word, you know, if you can tell me in one word, what best describes you personally and professionally?
Yeah, I would say the word would be perseverance. I'm very much into always finishing what I started. So once I start something, I commit to it, and every single day, you know, I'm improving on it just 1%, but I never give up. Like if I get knocked down, I'll get up and I'll continue along the road. So I think that's the most important attribute an investor can have as well.
Boy, that's really interesting. And, you know, just a quick story. I always say that I'm going to write a book one of these days. And, you know, there's been a myriad of words over the last few years. And, you know, I like the word perseverance because I think that that's who you have to be in this business. You know, mindset is really important in how we get to the end goal, right? And if the end goal is 500 units, 1,000 units, 2 units, you know, sometimes you just have to persevere. You know, we're kind of in a market right now where it's a little bit tougher, especially for the newer people. And the perseverance, I think, helps you get through. So, you know, let me ask you this. How do you keep your mindset intact to persevere? Because we know it can be tough today, but how do you persevere?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely suffered through a lot of like uncertainty, especially when COVID happened. And I do specifically student rentals. So all the colleges went online, and there was just so much uncertainty if they would even be at the college. But what I did is I spent a day to kind of just go through my fears and write down what's the worst case scenario. Then I also write down like, okay, how will I, like, I'm very solution oriented. How can I turn this into a solution? Like, what am I going to do if this happens? Like, worst case scenario happens. If all my fears come true, what will I do to positively go forward from there, right? And so I think that's the most important thing is instead of spending all this time worrying, I mean, if you have time to worry, you have time to work, right? So turn that worry time into work time. I mean, obviously you want to feel through the emotions that you go through, but at the end of the day, you want to pick yourself up and find a solution and, ask for help, right? Ask your mentors for help, talk to your friends, people that support you, and then go from there.
I love what you said. Turn your worry into work.
Yeah.
I have a very good friend that preaches that all the time. And I think that there's so much merit to that by just being able to do that. It really makes a difference in, how our perspective can be looked at.
Yeah.
So Ryan,
and every day is a new day too, right? So you have an opportunity every day to turn it around.
Right. Yeah. We can always direct our focus, even if we're worrying, we can kind of shift that mindset. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I have bad days. I have days where I'm like, I don't want to work today. I'm done. I'm tired of all this drama and all of that. So tomorrow it's going to be a new day and I'm going to start fresh. So
but the flip side to that, and, sometimes it's okay. Matter of fact, I was just writing something and I said, it's okay if I want to just stay in bed one morning.
Sure.
Right. Yeah. So sometimes it's okay if you're not feeling, and you're not going to be effective, go take a walk, work out a little bit longer, maybe take a half day off, take the whole day off, do something different, but do something that'll help you get your mind back in the game.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's great.
Yeah, definitely. I actually do jujitsu 5 to 7 times a week. So
really?
Yeah. So that's my exercise, and that kind of helps me get into the right mindset as well.
So you're actually somebody not to mess with, huh?
I started about 2 years ago, so I still have a long way to go for sure. It's a long journey for a black belt. Probably
I have a good friend here. Yeah, I have a good friend here in Chicago who is very competitive in the jiu-jitsu world.
Yeah.
And it's some interesting stories, that's for sure. So Ryan, hey, let's do this. Let's back up. Tell us a little bit about your history. How'd you get into multifamily? Where are you at today in your business? And, what's your aspirations, your goals?
Yeah, honestly, I started out, I graduated as a pharmacist in 2015, and I always wanted to get into real estate because my grandpa had bought in the San Francisco Bay Area. And not only was he able to cover part of my college tuition, but that of my brothers as well. And so I realized that real estate is one of the best ways to create generational wealth. So I just wanted to save up as much money as I could at the very beginning so I can buy as many properties as I could as many properties as I feel comfortable buying. So I bought one a year at the very beginning. I worked a lot of overtime. As a pharmacist, I would work from 7:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. at night at the hospital that I was working at. And I did that for the first 2 or 3 years and basically just bought one property a year until I got to around year 5, where I felt comfortable scaling to a lot more multifamily properties like duplexes, triplexes, and I got quadruplex as well. And what I did is I did a very specific strategy. I would rent out each bedroom to students, college students at a local top university. And typically these universities, they have a lot of graduate students. And the on-campus housing does not provide any housing for grad students. for most of these colleges. They just don't provide any. So a lot of these grad students, you have like 3,000 grad students that need housing. And so that's where my niche comes in. I'm able to offer them a room for $600 to $700 per month in a lot of different cities. And it beats out the on-campus housing of $1,200 per month, where you have to stay with a roommate. You have this large communal bathroom, right? It's a lot less privacy. So it just made a lot of sense for these students. And what I did is I usually got a large square footage house, and I added a couple bedrooms to get to a 5-bed or 6-bedroom house. And my largest one is 9 bedrooms, or actually technically 10 bedrooms. And I continue doing this. I would rent out $600 per month, $700 per month. And so a 6-bedroom unit will be renting out for $3,600 to $4,200. So like the duplexes will rent out for anywhere from $6,000 to $7,000 a month in rental income, while my mortgages were only, $1,500, $2,000, $2,500 per month. So per unit, I was able to make anywhere from $1,500 per month in cash flow, net cash flow in California, up to out of state. I was able to make up to $3,500 per month in net cash flow. And I would say the typical cash flow is around $2,000 per unit, essentially.
Wow, that's an interesting model. So I knew somebody years ago, actually when I was selling residential real estate, I had an investor client who was in the medical housing business, kind of the same model as yours. He only rented to interns that were in their last 2 years of their graduate program. They were never home. They were at the hospital all the time. They didn't have parties. They didn't smoke. Yeah. His maintenance costs were low. His unit turn costs were low. He had long-term tenants and kind of did the same thing, which was a very interesting model. But I like what you're doing. And are you still doing that today, or have you kind of scaled into the multifamily space?
Yeah, so I have 90 tenants, split among duplexes, single families, and a triplex, a quadruplex. So yeah, I kind of do a little bit of both, but I really focus, like you said, on those medical workers, doctors, nurses, medical residents and fellowships, lawyers, dentists, pharmacists. And so that's my primary clientele, essentially.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. And let's talk about your occupancy rate. Are you, are you full? Are you full all year? How does that work for you?
Yeah.
Are you ready to skyrocket your investment portfolio and leave a legacy? Are you tired of inconsistent returns received in the stock market? Do you think that it may be time you take a look at alternative investment options? Passive investing in multifamily real estate could just be that option for you. With no tenants, trash, or toilets to take care of, but providing a solid return on an annual basis that outperforms traditional investing, including monthly and quarterly returns along the way. These lower risk, secure assets are a sure hedge against inflation. If you want to learn more about these types of opportunities, you can email me directly for a 15-minute consultation to see if you qualify. Just email me at mike@mikemorawski.com.
Yeah, so the very first year, it might take a 2 to 3, like about 2 months or so to fill up your rooms. But after that, I do August to August 1-year leases. So we're fully occupied throughout the whole year. For starting in year 2, essentially, I'm fully occupied throughout the rest of the year. And what these people can do is they can always sublet during the summer, because I know a lot of people are like, oh, what about summer? What do you do? Well, that's a lot of the students I have are like graduate students, so they actually go through summer. They're like researchers, for example, and they actually work during the summer still, and so they still need the room. But I do have some people who, let's say they aren't going to summer school, they'll go ahead and sublet it to a summer school student or a friend of theirs, for example.
So when you allow them to sublet, are you approving the new tenant?
Yes. So I give them a sublet template that they can use, and I do have to make sure that I do my own vetting of the sublet, but it is essentially a sublet. Yes.
Interesting. And so is that the same model that you're going to keep going forward, or Are you looking to scale where you're maybe buying 100-unit properties?
Yeah, I eventually want to get to 100 properties or 100 units, right? So I definitely am kind of at that stage where I'm entering my scaling phase. I bought like 8 properties last year, for example, and I'm at 15 right now, and I want to get to 100. But I kind of do it at my own pace too. I want to slow things down to make sure that I have a system in place. This year, I really focused on building out a virtual assistant team who could help me with the 90 tenants, customer support, marketing, all of that type of stuff. Because as you can imagine, when you start scaling, that's when you really need really good employees in place.
Yeah. So do you have a partner or do you do this all on your own?
So at the beginning, basically the first 5-6 years, I bought all on my own, all in California. And then when I started going out of state, I also started bringing my uncle on as kind of a partner in terms of capital and kind of managing the teams and all of that as well. So yeah, for some of the out of state ones, I partnered on. I have 9 out of state and I have 6 in California.
Got it.
Yeah.
And are you raising capital to do this, or are you deploying all of your own capital?
It was my own. It was my own capital. Yeah. So the first 6 years, again, just working as a pharmacist, as a full-time pharmacist, just investing on the side. On my second home, I had to put only a 10% down because I ran out of money. And then what I did is I started taking out HELOCs because California, as you know, appreciation goes up quite a bit. It's about, each of my houses goes up about $35,000 to $50,000 a year. So what I did is I took out these HELOCs, $100,000 HELOCs per property, and then I used that to invest in out of state.
And what's the cost of capital on some of those HELOCs that you have?
So I locked in a 5.5% for the next 5 years. I used a local credit union.
Okay. Okay. If you went to try and get a HELOC loan today, would it still be at that 5.5?
No, it would not. No, I opened it up the moment I knew that rates were starting to rise. So as soon as I think inflation was hitting and all of that, that's when I took them out, and I just took it out really quickly because I was sensing they were going to rise up significantly. So sure. I actually have a HELOC rate that's lower than the conventional rate of a loan right now.
Do you really? Well, good for you.
Yeah.
So let's fast forward a little bit. Let's say that you want to liquidate in 2 years from now, and you have a house that was started as a 3-bedroom or a 4-bedroom, and now it's a 9-bedroom. Sure. What is your plan around that?
Yeah, so I did actually sell one of my houses, my very first house, and it was starting out as a 3-bed, 2-bath, and I made it into a 4-bed, 2-bath. And the person that I sold it to was an investor, and they actually wanted to keep the bedroom there. And it was a minimal square footage bedroom. I think it was like 70 or 80 square foot. So it was very small. But they said, I want to keep this here because I also want to rent to students. So what I did is I just sold to another investor. Now, let's say I sell to a single family. Well, or I'm not selling to an investor. All I need to do is hire somebody to demo down the walls that I put up, which was just some framing and drywall for, $1,000, $2,000, right? And then it would be back in the same shape it was in when I bought it originally. Nice. Because I don't do really massive renovations. It's like light renovational work.
Yeah. The way you and we all know real estate has some issues and some challenges along the way, but the way you talk about this, it seems like it's a very simple, no-brainer kind of opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, it's 6 bedrooms, typically $600 per bedroom. You're going to be making at least $3,600 a month. And, these houses, a lot of them, I buy them for like $200,000, $300,000 price range. And, you're always going to have cash flow with it. That's great.
All single family properties?
No, like I said, I have several duplexes. I think I have 3 duplexes. I have a quadruplex, a triplex, and then the rest are single families.
So what works better? Does the single family residence work better in a neighborhood, or are you better off with a duplex or a triplex?
I typically find that the single family and the duplexes do the best, at least in terms of cash flow, historically, because I try to, if it goes to like a quadruplex, a lot of the units are a little bit smaller, right? Just naturally smaller. But if you have like a duplex, like the 2 units are going to be still large enough that you can fit 5 people per side. It just depends, obviously, on the case. But that's what I found, at least in my market. So it will definitely depend on what market you invest in.
And what markets do you invest in, and what markets do you like best?
Yeah, so I started out in Stockton, California, near my alma mater college, where I went to pharmacy school. And like I said, I bought 5 there, and then I bought 1 in Sacramento, California, and I bought 1 in Huntsville, Alabama, and I bought 9 in Cleveland, Ohio. So kind of scattered throughout now.
And you're buying these near the university that's there?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I literally am across the street. All of my houses are across the street from my university that I went to pharmacy school at.
So how do you market to these students then to let them know that you have, this type of living?
Right. So nowadays it's word of mouth. I became the person, I'm pretty well known apparently at my university as the go-to person for off-campus housing because they know all my houses are across the street. So you kind of build a reputation for yourself. And think of it this way, if you have like 30 tenants, for example, each one of them has like 5 friends. And so you're already kind of automatically marketing to 150 people if you provide a good living experience for your 30 tenants or handful of tenants that you have. But with that being said, I do have marketing channels. So Facebook housing groups are really great. There's a lot of university Facebook housing groups out there. There's also Craigslist, there's Zillow. There's something called Avail, where you post on that site and it'll send it to many, many different housing sites. And there's also affiliate sites that are affiliated with the university that allow you to post on their kind of like de facto off-campus housing listing site. So I kind of use all of those tools. I also have like a tennis team at a house, for example, and I will talk with the coach, the tennis coach, and then I'll see if they can ask their, students or whatever, if they have anybody, a group of people who are interested in renting out a whole house of mine. And so I, generally speaking, get a lot of like full houses of swim teams, tennis teams, we got a baseball team. And so, yeah, that's a common thing that also happens.
Interesting. And so what's your future plans here? What are you going to work on next?
Just scaling. I think also building a team and leadership. I think leadership is extremely important when you grow to a certain size. Really being able to teach and train your employees to solve the day-to-day problems so that you can step away from the operations of your business and really become the visionary and the designer of your business.
Yeah, good for you. Good
instead
for you.
of the doer. Yeah.
So if somebody wanted to get into this business today, what would you advise them? How would, what are the first 2 or 3 steps that they should take to do that?
Yeah, so that's why I created a coaching program, because I saw a lot of people like struggling with the very first few steps. So I do have, newbie real estate investing if you are looking for mentorship. But with that being said, if you're just getting started out, I would start with the top colleges. The U.S. News provides a top colleges list, and you can kind of go through that list. And I try to be at those top colleges because that's my clientele, right? That's my client avatar. Is I want to have somebody who is very serious about their studies. Maybe they're pursuing a doctorate. They had straight A's, well-rounded students. And so, if you think of like John Hopkins, for example, you could start there. And then you want to do the market research to figure out what are the students' budgets, because for students, they're very particular about their budgets. They want affordable housing. And even if you're like $20 above their budget, they'll say, oh, you're out of my budget. I'm not going to look at it. But then you drop it $20 and they're like, oh, that's within my budget. So basically that's, I mean, I'm exaggerating, but essentially that's how students think. That's how I thought as a student, right? I had a very specific range, and if it didn't fit within that range, I would not look at that property. But or I might take a quick look, but I wouldn't consider it as much. So being affordable, being close to the campus within a 5-minute drive distance, and being at a top college are kind of some of the first couple steps that you want to make sure you take.
And how do you work bathrooms into it? So if you have a 9-bedroom house and 2 bathrooms, how's that work?
Yeah, you definitely want to maintain a good bedroom to bathroom ratio. So I advise like 3 bedrooms to 1 bathroom, or 3 students to 1 bathroom, because over that it starts getting a little bit tricky. I've gone up to 7 bedroom, 2 bathroom houses. So that means one of the bathrooms is a 4 people will share one of the bathrooms, for example. But I really try to stick to 6-bed, 2-bath houses. And so if you're having a private bathroom, I might actually open it up to the rest of the house, so it's a shared bathroom, so it can support more students.
And what do you think is like the distance? So do you want to buy something that's right across the street from campus, or can you be a couple miles away?
The closer, the better, obviously.
Right.
If you're right across the street, you're always going to have that thing rented out. Like 100%. People are just going to find you through word of mouth. And you're not even going to, I mean, okay, I'm exaggerating, but maybe a bit. But you probably won't have to do as much marketing, I would say. Like you might not have to do any marketing, in fact, if you have people who constantly stay there and people who have friends, etc. But if you're like within a 5-minute drive, I think that's totally fine. But you also want to look at public transport. If I were a student, if I put myself in the student's shoes and I were to go to campus, what's my most likely route? Well, I have to pass through a lot of tough neighborhoods, like trash everywhere, homeless walking around. Will I feel safe? And so that's a really important point, is you really have to do your research to figure out what are the high-end demand neighborhoods that students like to stay in. Because when students look for a place to stay, they ask their elders, right? They talk to the upperclassmen and say, hey, where did you stay off campus? What area should I stay away from? What area should I stay in? And so one of my places is called Little Italy. It's kind of like a buzzword for students. So what I do is I go on Reddit and I look up it's basically the student forum of word of mouth, right? So I'll go on Reddit and I'll look out like what are the best places to stay off campus per the students, and then I'll just buy in those neighborhoods. So I think that's more important to do than figuring out, okay, what's the exact distance, because you can be 5 minutes away, but if you're in a bad neighborhood and the parent sees that and they're like, oh, I don't want my child to stay there, then you're not going to get any demand, right? So you always want to start with the market research.
Yeah, interesting. Well, listen, I appreciate you being here today. This has been great.
Thank you.
It's a very interesting model, and I can see how it can be very profitable too. And student housing is the only place you work in that? You don't do any medical housing or anything like that for?
So I'm a hybrid. I would like to say I'm a hybrid because I do have a lot of medical residents and fellows that usually stay 2 to 3 years. And so I would say at least in Ohio, over half of my tenants are medical workers, or getting an internship or something like that through the local hospital. But the other half is going to be students, graduate students specifically.
No assisted living in this model at all?
No assisted living. No.
Okay, good for you. Well, Ryan, how do people get a hold of you if they want to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I have a free PDF guide which goes through my method, some of the specific strategies I use, as well as the mistakes I made, and what I learned from them doing specifically student housing and professional housing, student and professional housing, I should say. And that's at www.newbierealestateinvesting.com/guide. That's www.newbierealestateinvesting.com/guide. And newbie is spelled Newbie.
Awesome. You've been a great guest. Thank you. Very insightful, that's for sure. If you want to hang around for a minute, I'm going to move you out. I'm going to say goodbye. Any last comments for the listeners?
No, other than that, You know, a lot of people in real estate, they raise capital and use other people's money. With this specific method, you don't necessarily have to do that. You can use your own money. I started off, like I said, working, 9 to 5, and then working some overtime as well to really save up my initial capital. And I just bought one property a year. And every time I bought a property, my income would go up. $1,500 a month to $2,000 a month, $2,500 a month. So it got easier and easier to purchase faster and faster and faster. And that's what allowed me to scale, is that additional cash flow really helped me to build a portfolio faster than I would say a lot of people out there built theirs.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, thanks for being here. Stand by. I'm going to say goodbye. I'll be right back. Hey, everybody. That was Saturday Morning Live. That was my guy Chaw talking about how to utilize student housing more to your advantage to create more cash flow. We know we're in the real estate business trying to create cash flow, and that's the big thing. But you may want to go check out Ryan's coaching program. You may want to go check out Ryan's model and see if that's something that you can do where you are. So I welcome you here every Saturday morning. We're here every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. And remember the virtual multifamily summit coming up in October. Go to multifamily24.com, get registered for that event. If you need anything and I can be of help, don't hesitate to reach out. If you're looking for a community, you can jump over to our Facebook group at Multifamily Unplugged and get involved in the conversation going on there. And I look forward to seeing you next week.